friends, it's Krebsy. We're taking a look at the new maps coming out in 1.37. It's not one map, not two maps, not even three. They're adding in a whole whopping amount of maps. About 6 in particular for both arcade, I was gonna say historical and full real, but we know they don't come under those names anymore. Realistic and simulator battles. So the first one that we're going to be taking a look at is Foggy Albion, and it's a ground strike map. This one is really plain as bread. I want to say stuff about this map, but I think it's going to be actually quite hard to say a lot about it because it is literally just flat. In fact, I think I've mostly seen this map coming out in low tier matches, so I don't think it's something we'll see commonly in higher tiers because of just how close quarters all the ground targets are to each other. Chances are that wouldn't make sense for higher tier matches, but for lower tier ones with biplanes and such, having such close proximity ground targets makes much more sense. So it seems to be a lower tier map, and there's a lot of open space, so you won't be able to get cover behind anything, and don't rely on trees to be giving you cover. That's a bit too low to the ground. So this, in my opinion, is not a great map for Japanese, who kind of rely on cover, especially when they need to get out of situations where they get in a pickle. So great for boom and zooming, not so great for turn fighting. It's gonna be a mass sort of clusterfuck in the end. Map number 2 is Desert Coast, and in my opinion the least pretty map that they're adding in this patch. It's just really ugly. There's a lot of jagged lines, and I'd go as far as to say that Foggy Albion, as flat as it is more of a pretty map than this one, but that's just my preference. So you've got a lot more going on this map, a lot more terrain to maneuver around, and it's quite a large map actually. You've got 2 teams, each spawn one on the north side, one on the south side. They eventually meet in the middle, where there are ground targets that meet in the middle. You have towns that lie along the coast, especially in the center of the map, and you have ships which spawn in at around D2, and those will kill each other off pretty damn quickly. You have pillboxes in D2, D1, and they form a line of pillboxes, so those will make for a very easy killing sprees for bombers if they ever want to do bombing runs in a straight line. You have your air bases in B3 and also E3. Depending on which team you're on. There are also bases that can be destroyed, and you can see those scattered around the map. Most of them are towards the middle of the map, whilst there are 1 for each team on the right hand side, and that's very astray from the main action that's most likely going to happen on towards the middle and also the western side of the map. On the right hand side, not a lot. It's just openness, not as many ground targets heading that direction, so chances are you won't see a lot of combating going over there. If you're trying to avoid the calamity of fighters shooting you down if you're going with bombers, chances are that'll be a safe bet going that direction. Map number 3 is Iron Range, and as deceiving as the map looks like, as if it would be some sort of greeny map similar to Alpine Meadows, it is nothing like that. You've got a cold, wintry looking desert scene, and it's a relatively large map with lots and lots of cover to offer, and in fact this is probably my favorite map that they've added so far into this patch, because you've got a lot going on, big contrasts between where the ground targets are likely to go. On the left hand side and towards the middle of the map, you've got these canyons, ravine almost looking things, with passageways between them, which the ground targets will mingle their way through there and combat each other. And that's likely to see a lot of hot contesting, not necessarily from only bombers, but also fighters, and it'll make for good maneuvering positions between those canyons. But it also looks like that place is going to be the center of, well, I could imagine ground forces. It just reeks of ground forces. It looks like exactly something where you'll be fighting with your tanks in the future. On the right hand side of the map, you've got some more quieter ground targets heading towards each other. So if you're trying to get away from the calamity of the battle, then that's probably where you're likely going to try to go for. There's also a very nice defensive feature. Towards the southeast of the map is a very tight ravine, in which you might use that to lose your opponents if they happen to follow you through there. It'll be very hard to have your enemy shoot at you whilst you're going through this tight ravine, and it'll be a great way to lose your opponents. It's a shame that this ravine couldn't have been longer, because it would be epic if there was tight ravines like that, and you'd have some awesome dogfights, but it still makes it for an interesting map. The next map is Saipan, and it's an operations map, so chances are you'll be coming across this in realistic and simulator battles. It features two islands that aren't that far away from each other, so the enemy team, the red team over on the northwest side of the map, have a stronghold on both islands, and your ships are trying to make an offensive on both of these islands to try to capture the airfields. So it's actually quite epic when you're attacking the islands. You've got these carriers heading forward to the islands, you've got these ships and whatnot, and AI, and all the planes. It looks pretty damn epic, to be honest. But it's open-esque, there's not many mountains or anything to use to your cover advantage, like Korea, for example. So you're going to have to climb as much as possible if you want to get an advantage over your enemies. And in order to get back and repair, you're going to have to land on carriers. Now, can you land on the airfields on the map? Well, possibly. I've tried it myself when their airfields were in their hands, and obviously nothing would have happened. I couldn't actually repair myself, but eventually, possibly, when your landing craft reach the islands and capture them, then you might be able to. The fifth map is Defending Stalingrad, and it's another operations game mode, and it features three particular areas of interest on both teams, and you can see those spread on right across the map. It has a large dividing river, and it's actually something you're going to have to consider when you're flying on this map, because if you ever cross the river, it can be quite dangerous, because if you're flying low altitude, it's just nothing but flatness. There's no cover to take when you're crossing that river. It's just that people are going to have clear shots on you. Now, what makes this map a bit interesting, though, is because of those areas, those three areas on each team's, it might change your tactics, because if you ever find yourself needing some AA support, you can easily fall back to one of those positions, and chances are there are going to be AA there. Likewise, you're going to need to consider the AA if you're attacking your enemy and having to pursue them, because the air bases are actually behind those points. They're likely to be defending anyone who's retreating back to their airfield. The last map is Sicily, and it's a domination map, so it's for arcade battles. And it's very similar to Stalingrad and Zhengzhou, where you've got three airfields, one in the middle, and chances are that middle airfield is going to be contested. Now notice how that middle airfield is facing in the direction of both the enemy airfield and the friendly airfield. Now, one thing that I did have to note is that the south side actually looks stronger than the north side to me. And the reason is because the south side has a hill directly north of the southern airfield. And what that does is it's actually a relatively large hill. That gives cover for anyone fleeing from the center, and also it provides cover for anyone who's having to repair their plane, so that people at sea won't know if there is actually anyone at A, because they won't physically be able to see them. So that's all for the new maps being added in 1.37. That's a ton of new maps. I'm really looking forward to flying on them, and I'm sure you guys are as well. But the next video is going to be about flying with particular planes of interest. Until then, this is Krebsy, and I'll catch you all later.